Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Central Region Guest Speaker Series. Today we have Alexandra Kent, a meteorologist out of the Grand Forks Forecast Office. Today she'll be talking on a guide to making social media and our products accessible for everyone. And with that, I'll throw it over to you, Alex.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So, as you said, my name is Alexandra Kent. I have been a forecaster at Grand Forks for about 2 years now, and this is something I'm really passionate on, and it's just talking about how we can make our products more accessible for everyone. So I hope you can learn a little something today that you can take with you back to your office. So let's talk about why make social media and our products accessible for everyone? Well, we want to reach everyone who needs and uses weather information that we provide via our social media platforms. While we do push out products to our websites, the social media platforms are actually some of the ways that we reach the most people. Some people may follow our Facebook and not really look on our website for their weather information. So this is how we reach a lot of people. We also want to better communicate with members of the public who are disabled and to show we care about these underserved communities. They're often overlooked by other areas of society. So first, before we talk about some accessibility guidelines, we want to talk about Section 508 and the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, because those are really the groundwork for why we do this. So what is Section 508? Well, in 1998, Congress amended the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 to add 508, which says federal agencies to develop, procure, maintain, and use information and communications technology that is accessible for people with disabilities, regardless of whether they work for the federal government or not. So this is a requirement by the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And I'm really excited to start to see more of a push for accessibility in what we put out there in the world so that everyone can get that information. And as we look at web content accessibility guidelines, now this is a big old document that is out there on the internet. I do have a link in there. I'm not sure if our slides are going to be shared, but I do have a link in there. If not, you can Google the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0, and it should take you to a website that has all of them. But that being said, there are 4 principles for web content accessibility, and that is that the content is perceivable, that it is operable, understandable, and robust. So we will go through all of those here in just a minute. So the first principle is perceivable content. That means provide text alternatives for any non-text content so that it can be perceived by those who utilize large print, braille, symbols, or simpler language. So this just means like adding alt text to our images that we put on Twitter and Facebook. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold, so if I sound a little bit funny, that is why. We provide access to time-based materials such as videos by utilizing transcripts or closed captioning. So don't just post a video onto Facebook or Twitter. Make sure that you add some kind of transcript or closed captioning. I think that Facebook has started doing this automatically. However, those automatic transcripts are sometimes not the best either. Create content that can be perceived in all forms, including assistive technology, without losing meaning or information. We will get into a little bit more about what assistive technology is in a few slides. And make content distinguishable to those with disabilities. This includes using readable fonts, make sure there is good contrast in images and graphics, and make sure audio is clearly recorded with no background noise so that it is easy to hear, even for people who have difficulty hearing. So principle 2 is that the content is operable. Make all content accessible from a keyboard. I'm pretty sure this goes through more kind of website setup than what we put out on social media. So this is handled, I would assume, at a national level with our websites. But just make sure that all your content can be accessible from a keyboard, which playing videos on Facebook and Twitter, I'm pretty sure is. Provide users enough time to read and use content. So leave the text and images on the screen. Don't just flash it up and take it away. I know it's really easy to do that sometimes if you're trying to get through something quickly, but make sure you give people enough time to read and understand the content before you take it away from them. Do not design content in a way that could potentially cause a seizure or give a flash warning if you do. So sometimes posting satellite loops on social media, it can be a little bit flashy, especially on those RGB products I've noticed. So maybe just give a flash warning if a loop is particularly flashy. And provide ways to help users navigate, find content, and determine where they are. So headings and labels on pages and graphics. What is the graphic about? Well, it's about severe weather. So put that in the header, and then make sure you also have a table of contents if it is a document, or even I've seen them done in videos where they have little tables of contents. So principles 3 and 4 are pretty simple. They're a little bit smaller than the first two, so I was able to put them on one slide. It just means you make content readable and understandable. Make sure you use simple language, no jargon. We're trying to move away from jargon a little bit more in the NWS. So just kind of make sure that you explain something if you do use an abbreviation, or if you use something that only really meteorologists would know. And make sure you add a pronunciation if it is necessary. Make your content predictable from graphic to graphic. So this means consistent identification and labeling, especially in severe weather situations. All of your severe weather graphics ideally should look somewhat similar in setup. So I know our office here, we are working on a template that you just add in the severe weather outlook and then your hazards. And otherwise it looks pretty much the same, so that people can identify when they're scrolling through Facebook, oh, that's a severe weather outlook, I need to pay attention. And to help users avoid and correct mistakes, again, I think that is on a website level. And robust just means maximize compatibility with assistive technology. So utilizing all of the previous recommendations to make sure people using assistive technology can process our information. We will go into assistive technology and how we can help people who use assistive technology to browse Facebook and Twitter. We will go into that in just a few slides. So now we're really going to get into the guidelines. We're going to be talking about making it accessible for people who have color blindness. So about 1 in 20 people are colorblind in some way. That's a lot of people we could be missing in our messaging, especially with severe weather outlooks. So there are different types of color blindness. This is protanopia, which is red-green color blindness. That is going to be the PROT palette that you see right there in the image. And then deuteranopia, which is red-green color blindness, but they're more sensitive to green light. That is going to be the second from the right there. And then tritanopia, which is blue-yellow color blindness. From what I understand, that is a little bit more rare than red-green color blindness. Those are going to be the most common. And monochromacy, which means they can only see black and white. This is extremely rare. So our most common color blindness issues are going to be the red-green. Those are the most common across America and even the world, I would say. So also to the right there, you can see the SPC Outlook. I plugged it into a color blindness palette, and that just shows what it looks like to someone who is red-green colorblind or blue-yellow colorblind there on the very right. So you can see some of these colors look similar. Some of them could blend together if there is no other distinction other than using colors. So how can we make this more accessible? Well, graphics can be made accessible for the colorblind by using special color palettes. So this extends into things we use for like risk bars on graphics or the hazards matrix, etc., other color-based warning supplements that you use in graphics on social media. So there are a few sources you can use to check your color palettes. There's the Adobe Color Accessibility Tool. That one is a fantastic one. It tells you if two colors are too close together, you need to change one. The coloring for color blindness is what I just showed on the previous slide. You can plug in colors and it will show you what it looks like in those 3 color blindness disorders. So by using colorblind friendly palettes, we can convey the correct risk for everyone, but that's not all we can do to convey our risk to those who are colorblind. We can also start to use patterns and textures to show contrast in similar colors or colors that those who are colorblind have trouble with. So reds and greens, blues and yellows. We can avoid colors with similar hues, saturation, and brightness. Use both color and symbols in graphics, or use color and text in conveying risk level. So from NWS New Orleans, they use both in the label down at the bottom below the map. They use both color and text to explain that this area is slight risk, that is yellow, and then there is the marginal risk, that is in the green. They also use the hatched marking. Now, I am not sure if they were in a hatched threat that is used from SPC, but if they added the texture, that's great. Otherwise, we've had success here at NWS Grand Forks using outlines for the SPC color areas. So outlining the green area and putting a 1 in it. We've actually gotten some praise from colorblind people in our community saying that this helps them a lot better to understand what threat level they are under. So that's just some ideas that are pretty easy that we can use for people who are colorblind. Here's some more accessible palettes. Using gradients is always generally a good choice, and black and white and grayscale is always accessible. So keep this in mind when you are designing graphics. Blue to red, as you can see, is the second one. That one is used commonly by climate palettes, and that one is colorblind friendly, as is the one on top and the gradient on the bottom. So obviously we cannot change the SPC color palette. However, we can add numbers, patterns, textures, and outlines to make it more accessible for people to digest the severe weather information we are putting out there. So now let's move on to visually impaired. Various levels of visual impairment exist, such as those who have vision but lose visual acuity, near and farsighted. I'm sure you went to school or work with someone who is nearsighted or farsighted. Legally blind individuals, those who have less than 2200 vision in the better eye or a limited field in their peripheral of 20 degrees or less. And then there are totally blind individuals who need Braille audio recordings and other non-visual media as accommodation to get their information. So according to the 2018 National Health Interview Survey, many visually impaired individuals use screen readers for social media and the web. Now, a screen reader is a device or program that renders text and image content as speech or Braille output. So I'm pretty sure that the speech one is the most common, so that is why we utilize alt text in our graphics. But it is just a good idea to know that people do rely on things other than just looking at the graphic on social media to get their information. So this is where alt text comes in. Alt text is a vital tool for those who use screen readers to browse social media and the web. It gives these individuals the ability to know what an image is showing via a descriptive caption. You can see an example there on the right. But it also helps people with bad internet connections by providing an image description when the image fails to load. I grew up in the country. I had horrible internet as a kid when I was going through school. And so using alt text on some websites actually did really help me when a website just wouldn't load for whatever reason. And alt text can be added on CMS, the platform that we use to update our website. It can be used on Facebook and Twitter. I do have instructions, but a lot of offices have started to come up with instructions for their alt text. So if you need some, I can give my email at the end, or you can look into your local region or office to see if they have any instructions or helpful tips for how to use alt text. And making it accessible for deaf and hard of hearing. Now, this NOAA has actually done a really good job with. Deaf and hard of hearing individuals utilize closed captioning on videos, but they can also benefit from sign language interpreters to participate in speeches, music concerts, and gather more of what's going on around them. They also require a special approach to messaging. So usually we just shout out when thunder roars, go indoors. That is something we have been told time and time again. And also to have your weather radio turned up tonight is used a lot in our messaging for severe weather. Well, for deaf and hard of hearing folks, they can't really understand that because they can't hear, they have trouble hearing. So we have to take a special approach to it. but luckily NOAA and the Weather Ready Nation initiative has done a lot of the work for us. So NOAA has a website full of videos and graphics targeting the deaf and hard of hearing. I'm pretty sure you can find this website by Googling, but it is on the Weather Ready Nation website. And we just need to remember that we have these tools available to us to reach these people in the community, and we need to utilize them more. They are not very commonly used, at least in my experience. So they may be utilized more in other areas of the country, but in my experience, these need to be utilized more. And the weather radios can help messaging the deaf and hard of hearing as well, as many have flashing lights or vibrations to alert the user of a severe warning when they cannot hear the sound. Again, I'm pretty sure the NOAA Weather Ready Nation website has a link possibly to the different types of vibration alerts and flashing light alerts they can add on to their weather radios. I'm not totally sure, but I think there are some links there. So just broadcasting these out there and getting them out in the community is really important so that people can understand that these are available. Now let's go into some other disabilities. We have dyslexia, which is a learning disorder that involves difficulty reading due to problems identifying speech sounds and learning how they relate to letters and words. So improving the formatting of the written communication we put out into the world and utilizing text-to-speech can ease these problems caused by dyslexia. So some things on the right that we can do, we can utilize more readable fonts such as Arial, Comic Sans, Verdana, Tahoma, Century Gothic, Trebuchet, Calibri, and Open Sans. There may be more readable fonts. These are the ones that I can find on a guide online that I have in my references at the end. I can flash up for you guys. Text should be at least 12 to 14 font. 12 font is the minimum for those who are also low vision or legally blind as well for reading graphics. So 12 point should be the minimum for all of our graphics. And underlining and italicizing can make things hard to read, but bold is usually easier to read for people who have dyslexia. This is not an overarching thing. Everyone is different, but this is the most common. So for headings, use a font that is at least 20% bigger than normal text. So if you're using 14-point normal text in the body of your graphic, make a 16-point header at least. And add extra space between paragraphs or bullet points just so they have that extra separation that they can see the paragraph ends here and it starts down here. Make sure your hyperlinks look different than surrounding text. That also applies to those using screen readers as well. They need to know what is actually the hyperlink. Avoid backgrounds with patterns that can be distracting and make sure there is sufficient contrast between text and background. So don't be using blue text on a green background, stuff like that. Just make sure they can really see what is text and what is the background. Left-aligned text can be easier to read for some dyslexic people. Again, this is not in everyone with dyslexia. This is just the most common that I have found. And use active voice, bullet points, images for support, and be concise. Really try and get what you're trying to say in as few words as possible. Now, central auditory processing disorder is a disorder where the brain and ears do not work together well. People with central auditory processing disorder, the hallmark is often they have perfect hearing or good hearing, but the brain still has trouble processing similar sounding words, removing background noise, and knowing where a sound is coming from and processing what is said to them. I actually myself have central auditory processing disorder. It is usually seen as a comorbidity with a neurodivergence such as ADHD or autism spectrum condition. And people with CAPD, we prefer written text to spoken word in how we process our information. We prefer written out instructions, transcripts, or subtitles to really help us understand what is being said. And closed captioning is the best tool to help us understand what is being said in videos. Most of us prefer subtitles regardless of how clear the audio is, because sometimes maybe the background we're in is really loud, so we are having a hard time, even though the background noise in the video is fine. It's the background that we are in that is causing the issues. So then there are intellectual disabilities, which is an umbrella term for disabilities that impact the person's ability to learn, reason, problem solve, or do other things that are required of them in daily life. NOAA has partnered with News to You, which is a good program that creates a Weather Ready Nation newspaper and some activities that are targeted towards individuals with intellectual disabilities. This website that is hyperlinked there under Weather Ready Nation newspaper and some activities in the slides. It has really good resources ranging from just pictures to pictures and sentences to get weather information across. And this is for weather safety information, such as in a tornado, go into an interior room, things like that. Things we can do to make sure we're reaching everyone: utilize symbols or images along with text. So if you have text saying that is going to snow, make sure you have a little snowflake next to it, or make sure you have an emergency kit in your car. Have a little icon of, we like to use here at the office, a battery with 2 jumper cables. And be concise and simple, no jargon. We're going to hit that again and again. We have a summary slide coming up that is going to hit all of these points. So in summary, actions we can take to help everyone access our social media products: utilize plain language, include closed captioning or subtitles if you do have a video or audio post, such as a Facebook Live, or even just include a transcript in the comments. Utilize alt text with every image on social media, and camel case with hashtags. So hashtag capital NDWX versus hashtag NDWX. This helps people with screen readers be able to process better what the hashtag is saying, because screen readers are technology. They're not perfect. It's not a human there that can explain it. So it just spits out what is in the text. Utilize multiple formats to get the point across. So description, graphics, and symbols. Make sure color schemes are accessible and have good contrast. And I put label SPC outlooks to help with the color table because we've had good success here in RCWA with doing this. So together we can make our information useful and accessible to everyone just by making a few changes to how we do this, how we post our weather information onto social media. So with that, any questions? I will be available for taking questions. Pretty short presentation, only about 20 to 30 minutes. Here are my references. I will leave these up here for you all, but I'm pretty much done and ready to take questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, Alex. If folks would like to raise their hand, or you can actually type a question as well if you'd like, but go ahead and raise your hand and we'll open up your mic to talk to Alex. As we're waiting, you know, I'm sitting here thinking a picture paints 1,000 words, but you still need to add text or some alt text or something to it, because you know, you think, oh, I'll throw a picture up here and I'll be done, but you probably need to add some type of wording to explain what you're showing.
Right.
So very good. So, all right, I don't see any questions. So good job, Alex. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. We have these each Wednesday morning at 11. So we'll see you next time. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure.